CAD software training.
Let's see about sketch settings. Here I have already created one sketch which is created in the tutorial number 14. Okay, so the same sketch I'm selecting it and making a right click. I'm going for this settings button. Okay, so this is called sketch settings. So once you get into the sketch settings, here you can find dimension label. So in this dimension label we have three options. One is expression, another one is name, another one is value. So what is this all about is expression means generally when we create any sketch, it will contain along with the expression with the value, dimension value. And if you have only the name means only the expression name only will be shown. And the other one is value means if you keep it as a value, the sketch dimension value only will be shown. That is what this value. So let's see about one by one. See now, I'm cancelling this button. So now I am getting into the sketch. Double click on this. Now I am going for settings button. So this is sketch preference settings actually. This is relevant to sketch settings only. Okay, this will show only about sketch settings. So here you can see the expression means the expression. Here you can see the expression along with the dimension it is shown. Okay, so for example, now I am going to name means only the expression names only will be visible once you apply it. See here. So here P56, 651 everywhere only the expression names only will be present. The values won't be shown. And the next one is value. If you keep it as a value, only the value dimension value only will be shown. The expressions won't be shown. So this is what this dimension value. Sometimes there may be a requirement that we may need to see only the dimension means the dimension only will be shown. Sometimes we may need only the expression to be shown, not about the value means that time we can go for only the names only we can keep it. Okay, so it depends on our requirement we can keep it. And the fixed text state we already seen. So the fixed text state it will work based on the this text size actually based on the view scale factor. For example, one more time I will tell. So now it is in the turned off condition. If you zoom in and zoom out, the text size there won't be any change in the text size. Suppose by default this button will be in on condition. You wanted to keep this in the stationary. This text size should not change means you can keep it in the off condition. Suppose I am turning on means based on my zoom scale factor, view zoom scale factor, accordingly the text size will change like this. See now when I am zooming very close by or else when zooming out like this the dimensions will collide each other, so you may not able to read all these dimensions. So to avoid such a confusions, what you can do, so keep the sketch in the Orient view to sketch option, then you just go for this fixed text button in the switched off condition so that the text size will not change anymore. Okay, when you are zooming in zooming out, it will be there still in the stationary position. That means the dimension won't, text size won't get changed, it will be in the same size. Suppose you wanted to change it, suppose in this condition you are going to maintain your sketch means, suppose you are adding some additional profiles means that time the zoom scale factor may need to increase. That time again you go for Orient view to sketch, then click on this button and give OK. Okay, based on the requirement zoom scale factor, the text size will get automatically changed. Then you can turn off it one more time. Okay, so this is how you have to control this fixed text height on screen. Okay, the next one is constraint symbol size. The constraint symbol size means here you can see it is given as a 3. The constraint symbol means whatever the points, whatever the center points, whatever the end point, so everywhere you can see the constraints has some symbols. Okay, these symbols size can be controlled by this constraint symbol size. For example, now you can see it is with the size of 3. Now I am going to change it into 6. Just see what's happening. Now I'm giving apply. The constraint size, wherever there is a constraint, the constraints button size got increased. Okay, suppose you do not want to keep it as 6. You wanted to keep it as 1 means you can go for it. Then you give apply. So it won't be visible. It will be a very very small value, so that you have to zoom and you have to check it. See here. Here you can see the constraint symbol size. Like this it will look like. Okay. So this is why this button is used. So now I'm changing it back to original of 3 only. Now you can see the symbols are present. Sometimes in your customer settings, if it is set as whatever the value it is set, keep it as it is. Do not disturb these values, because of based on the requirement of the customer it is placed, means you should not tamper it. Okay. Right. Suppose the constraint itself not visible, means that time you can change this size for your understanding purpose. Okay. Right. So create inferred constraints means the create inferred constraint button will work in this way. I will show you one example. I'll cancel this button. Here also you can see create inferred constraints button is there. Here you can see enables inferred constraints during curve construction. That means what it does is, suppose I'm going to create one line, means now I'm creating in a horizontal manner. That means by default it will take a horizontal constraint. See here, by default we are not applying any constraint from our end. By default it taken a horizontal constraint. Now I'm going to create one vertical line, means now I have taken it creates as a vertical. Suppose I am creating a line from this middle of this object, means okay, from this middle of this object I am going to create one line. Let us see now what kind of constraint it takes. See now this has taken as a horizontal. Here it didn't apply any perpendicularity. By default it has taken horizontal and vertical. So this is called inferred constraints. Inferred constraint means defaultly it will take horizontal and vertical constraints by default. This is what inferred constraints. Okay, suppose I'm going to create one circle. When I move my circle nearby to this line, automatically it's a tangential constraint. So suppose I'm going to move my cursor towards my vertical line, means here also it make a tangential. So this is what my requirement means. I can keep it like this. See now this has taken a tangential constraint. This is how inferred constraints will work. Inferred constraint means how it is taking the constraints by automatically, means by default whatever the what are all the buttons in the on condition, those buttons only visible here in the constraints toolbar. So these are all the constraints will be taken automatically when you turn on this create inferred constraint. But it depends on our creation. When you are going nearby to this line only, it will ask you that whether you want the tangential constraint or not. Okay, so only for horizontal and vertical it will take a constraints defaultly, but for other constraints it will ask you to select it. So if you select it accordingly it will come. For example, now I'm going to create one line here. Okay, now I'm going to create one line here like this. So this takes vertical line. Okay, this didn't take any parallel or perpendicular or anything. See, so if for nearby to this line only I have created it. This is not taking any parallel lines, it is taking only vertical lines. So why means actually the first preference is horizontal and vertical. Later whatever the constraints you want you can give it accordingly. Okay, right. So this is what inferred constraint. Suppose here inferred constraint is on, because of that you are getting these tangential constraints, because of that you are getting horizontal and vertical constraints. Suppose here you switch off also, it is fine, or else in the settings button also if you to switch off also it is fine. Now it is in the on condition, because of that this vertical and horizontal it has came automatically. Now I am going to switch off it. Just I am switching off it. See now this button is in the turned off condition, it is not highlighted now. Now I am creating a line. This will not consider as a horizontal line. See now there is no constraints are created. So I am going to create a vertical line. So this will not consider as a vertical line. Okay. So now we only have to create the constraint for this. So for this line we have to specify that this is horizontal, like we have to select, this is vertical, like we have to select, then only these constraints will be applied, otherwise these constraints won't be taken automatically. This is what create inferred constraints button. So this is create inferred constraints button. Every time you no need to turn on. By default it will be in the on condition only. Since horizontal and vertical lines you want means you can create it automatically. Okay, so that is why the setting is enabled automatically. Suppose you do not want permanently means you can go to the settings button, preference settings. Here itself you can turn off. Sketch settings you are going. So in the sketch settings, here there is a tab, sketch settings. So this sketch settings will allow you to create inferred constraints. If you turn off from here, allow you to for the upcoming sketches, this settings will be taken care. For the existing sketch, it won't be taken care. If you are going the sketch settings from preference sketch settings, then this settings will be allowed only for the upcoming sketches. Newly whatever the sketches you are going to create, only for that it will be taken care. Only for that it will be taken care, this create inferred constraints. For the existing sketch you wanted to take care of it, then you have to go for settings button. Okay, here you go. So create inferred constraint, if you want means you can turn on it, if you do not want you can switch off it. Similarly, continuous auto dimension, here continuous auto dimensioning is, if you keep it as a off condition, then continuous auto dimension won't get created for the upcoming sketches. For example, now I will delete these two sketches. Okay, I'm going to create a new sketch. So before I go into the new sketch, what I'm going to do, preferences, sketch I am going, preferences, sketch I am selecting. Here in the sketch settings, I am going here, continuous auto dimensioning is on, create inferred constraint is on. Let us say about continuous auto dimension. Continuous auto dimension means, see for example, okay, right. So now this sketch settings, continuous auto dimensioning is on. So I am selecting this rectangle so that immediately it has created this continuous auto dimensions. Since this continuous auto dimensioning is on, because of that this continuous auto dimensioning is keep creating. Suppose you do not want to turn on from here, permanently you turn on, you wanted to turn off it means, permanently means for the upcoming sketches and for everything you do not want to create the sketch with the auto dimension means, then you can go for preference sketch, you can go. So here you switch off it. Then once you do it, then you get into the sketch. I am going to create a new sketch now. Sketch in task environment. Select this Q. OK. Now I'm going to create a rectangle. See now, I didn't touch anything here in this settings. Here, if you turn off itself and the settings button itself, if you turn off, automatically this continuous auto dimension won't get created. Okay. Now I created this sketch. So suppose now I'm going for the new sketch to get created. Okay. Now I'm going to create a new sketch with reference to new. Now I'm going for sketch in task environment. So now I'm selecting this right side plane. Okay. So in this plane I'm going to create some circles. Okay. Here also it won't create any auto dimensions because of this button is in the turned off condition in the settings itself, so that permanently we have disabled in this particular file. In this particular file only, in this model3.prt, in this particular file only, we have told that we are not going to use any automatic dimensions, so that these settings can be turned off only from the preference settings, and the sketch settings will be there over there. If you turn off it, for all the upcoming sketches, this continuous auto dimensions won't get created. Okay, so that is what this button. So now I'm going for preference sketch settings, and this is for the upcoming sketches only. Whatever the sketches we are going to create newly only, it will control. For the existing sketches you have to go for making a right click and you go for settings button. Okay, right. So here a display object color, there is one button. Display object color means if you turn on this button, if you give apply, now see, now I'm going to create some circles. It is coming with a blue color button. Okay, so what it does means, Going for settings, display object color, I'm turning off it, apply I'm giving. Now I'm going to create a line. Display object color means it will take the sketch settings color. Okay, suppose if you do not want to take the sketch settings color, you wanted to take the part color means, then the part color will be taken as your sketch color. For example, I will go to the settings button. Now I have turned on it. I'm now going to create an extrude. Okay, this is the rectangle what we have created now. Now this is with the display object color in the off condition. Now I'm turning on it. Then you see it comes with a blue color. Generally, all the sketch colors will be in the green color only. Okay, but even though when I turn on this button, the sketch settings button, what happening is it takes the blue color button. Why it takes the blue color button means because of it takes the part settings color. That means the individual model file, whatever the color settings are present, that color settings only it will take for even for the sketches also. Suppose I'm switching off it. You see now it came with the green color. Green color is the sketch settings color. If I am turning on, it will go to the display object color, then it will go to the part color. Okay, see now even if you get into the sketch also, it will be shown with the blue color only. Now we are into the sketch. See now, now we are into the sketch button only. Okay, now also it shows the part settings color only. So that only what we are telling. So this display color object color should be in the off condition, so that by default it will take the sketch color. When you get into the sketch color, it will be in the green color only. When you come out of the sketch, it will be in the blue color. If you don't switch off that button, so that will take the part settings color. Okay, part settings color means that will become as a blue color. Okay, so generally this button will be in the off condition. Use solving tolerance means generally if there is any line, one more line I am going to create beside this, inline to this. Suppose now I am taking a coincident constraint means there will be a zero tolerance between this line's endpoint and this line's endpoint, so that there will be a contact and there is no tolerance. It is zero tolerance is present. Suppose sometimes when you take a line, sometimes when you create a line, inline to this point on curve option means now I'm going to create a line beside this, but not exactly on the end point. It is very close by. I'm going to create it. The tolerance is around nearly 0.001 means 0.01 means then it will accept with that with reference to that tolerance. It will consider that it is a close to profile, even though it is not touching, or else even though it touches and it is little bit away from the coincident point, it will take that as a coincident point only. So that is what that settings. So generally this use solving tolerance, you no need to change anything. By default it is the value it is set, you no need to change that at any point of time. And a display object name means display object name, I will tell about that 1 minute. See now, so now I am getting into the sketch. Okay, here you can see only the constraints. On this horizontal constraint is there, perpendicularity constraint is there. So these constraints are there, but this object names not present. Object name means each and every line will contain a object name. Here for this line it is line 27. For this circle it is arc 21. For this one it is line 28. For this it is, for this is a different sketch, so that we have to get into the sketch. I will double click on this 1 minute. So for this sketch I'm double clicking. Okay, this is a different sketch. For this sketch it is arc 20. For this sketch For this sketch, it is line 32. This is a different sketch. This is a sketch number 1. Okay. So for each and every line entity, whatever we create, everything will have a object name. Okay. So this object name won't be visible straightforwardly when you are into the sketch. So to do that, now I'm getting into the sketch 1. So I wanted to see all the sketch names means. So how you can make that in the on condition means already we have seen this settings. Again I will tell one more time. So you can go for preference to show all these view names. You can go for preference, visualization. Here you can go for names and borders. So the model view names we will show, right? The model view names to make this, whether it's a front view or left side view or right side view, already seen in the previous tutorials. Okay. So you can turn on this button, show model view names, that you can turn on, and show model view borders you can turn on, and show object names. Here this is the button we are interested now, show object names. So this show object names means if you keep that in the on condition, okay, all views means it will show in the all the views. Work view means whichever the work view to show, only for that it will show. So object view names I'm going to turn on now. View of definition I'm going to turn on now. I'm going to give OK. So here you can see the line numbers, the line names, everything has come now, irrespective of the sketch. So now when I'm getting into the sketch one only, I used to get that name. So now for everything, I got the view names. Okay, to make you understand very clearly only, I done this button on. Generally, it will be in the switched off condition only. See now, preference, can go for visualization. Here, view of definition I turned on. Instead of that, if you go for work view only means apply you give OK. Now I am going for trimetric view. Okay, so even here also it shows. Now I'm coming out of the sketch. For all the views, all the names will be visible, irrespective of whether you are into the sketch or else outside of the sketch. It doesn't matter. All the time these lines will be visible. So this may distract you, and as well as it will give some this information not required always. So that only what we are doing is, if you want these settings to be on means then you can turn on, otherwise keep this button in the off condition. So display object name you can turn off from here also. So this display object name, whether within this sketch you wanted to turn on, it means you can turn on. If you do not want, you can switch off it. That is purpose. That is respect to the sketches you have to turn on and turn off. For example, this sketch I wanted to go means sketch 002 I'm going. If in this sketch I wanted to turn on, it means I can turn on. If I don't want means you can just turn off it. Okay, that will get rid of. Okay, see now in this R20 it is still visible. Why means particularly for this sketch I didn't turn off, so that if you want you can keep this in the on condition, otherwise you can switch off it. Okay, like this you can switch off it. Then the next one is display vertices. Display vertices means it's very simple. So now I'm getting into the sketch. The display vertices means I'm going to create some lines and arcs. See now I'm going to create some circles as well. Okay, so three objects I have created. To these end points you can see some points, and to the center point you can see some points. To the circle center point you can see some center points. To this line's end points you can see some points. So this is what vertices. The vertices means the line's end point, midpoint, and these are all the places where the line's end. Vertices means to that line's end points and circle center point, and arcs to end points and center point you will get some points. That is what vertices is. This vertices is visible means you can able to select very clearly. Suppose you do not know where the vertices are means the selection of these snap points also is very difficult. Okay, so generally in the sketches these vertices will be in the on condition. If you do not want, you can switch off it also. How to turn off it I will tell you. Select the sketch, make a right click, go for settings. Here you can see display vertices. this display vertices button is now I have switched off it. If you apply it now, see there is no points will be visible. Now, if I want to select this line's endpoint means where it is present, I only have to go and select it. Where is this center point? I do not know, but I have to keep the cursor here. See now, even now it is very difficult to understand that where is the center point. So now I'm going for center point means I will select the circle center point. So here where the center point like I can imagine or else I can think of. Okay, so imaginarily that point won't be visible. So you have to think of that once you place your cursor on top of the circle or else on top of this arc only, you may come to know that where there is a center point. Okay, suppose you wanted to go for this midpoint means where there is a midpoint here it must be like ideally you can think and you can do it. Otherwise you can select this midpoint and you can select it like this. So these vertices are visible means it will give more clear indication that where there is a vertices. Okay, so that only we are keeping that in the button in the on condition. Sometimes for your presentation purpose or else sometimes for your special requirement purpose this vertices you may need it. So in such a cases you can switch off these settings temporarily. Okay, how to switch off it? Select this, go to settings, display vertices. If you turn on the settings button, if you turn on these points will be visible. Suppose if you switch off it, it won't be visible. So this is how this sketch settings button work. So this sketch setting button is very important so that only you can able to control your sketch according to your requirement. Okay, so that's why this settings button I have taught now. So let's see on the, hope you understand today's session. Let's see in the other tutorial. Thank you. Hope you understand today's session. If you are not subscribed till now, please subscribe to the channel and keep following me. So let's see in the next class. Thank you.